Hi everyone, thank you for joining my webinar. My name is Niki Drage and I'm a OneMind Dogs coach in Australia. And today we're going to be talking about drive and motivation in agility, how to get the best out of your dog. So this is a topic that comes up quite a lot with our customer base and also with our students in webinars. So we wanted to talk about it today. So before we get started, just a quick overview of the OneMind Dogs method in case you're brand new to OneMind Dogs. So basically the OneMind Dogs method started because of this border collie you can see on the screen called Tekla. She was owned by Janita Leinonen, our founding coach who developed the method. And Tekla lost her hearing and Janita wanted to keep doing agility with her at that point. So she had to completely change her handling system from a verbal-based system to a body language-based system. So she did a lot of experimenting and moving different ways and seeing how that affected the dog. And out of that, over time, she developed a hypothesis of what dogs react to, and she tested it on lots of her students. And across a few years, she identified 7 main handling elements that all dogs naturally react to. And she used those to develop the OneMind Dogs method. And all of the handling techniques that you see today that are in the method are based on those 7 handling elements. And across the many years that OneMind Dogs has been going, we've been learning more and more from our dogs and constantly developing the method based off of that. So it's all about your dog's natural instinctive reactions to things, and that's how we basically develop our handling. So today we're going to be talking about seeing your dog for who they actually are, effective rewarding, training session guidelines, why teaching skills is so important, and handling that builds drive. Starting with seeing your dog for who they are. So basically this sounds pretty obvious, but basically what I mean is I want you to observe your dog in more detail in everyday life. How do they normally behave? Do they normally choose to run fast? So let's say you're going for a walk to the park, or if you have a reasonably sized backyard, do they run around quickly when they're out there with you, or do they prefer to just wander around and sniff stuff and have a bit of a slower explore? If they're running with another dog, do they like to chase that dog and engage really excitedly, or do they more just walk around together? Knowing how your dog naturally behaves in everyday life is going to give you a bit of a insight into how your dog will be in agility. And that doesn't mean that a dog that naturally doesn't run around is impossible to motivate for agility. It's just more challenging. So you need to put more effort into building value and finding what brings out that excitement in your dog. Whereas if your dog is naturally very excitable and jumpy and likes to do really active things all the time, it's going to be much easier to harness that into motivation for agility. So be aware of what your dog is naturally like. Don't feel like, oh, why I must be doing something wrong because my dog doesn't like it. It might just be that your dog isn't such an excitable dog. So you have to just put in that bit of extra effort, and it's nothing that you've done wrong. Also, I want you to observe whether your dog moves freely. So are they physically fit and healthy? Do they run smoothly with an extended gait in full extension? Do they jump over stuff naturally like logs and things like that? Do they climb on things? Can they jump in the car or on the couch or wherever they're allowed? Make sure that there are no physical restrictions in your dog's everyday life. Obviously, ideally, you also want to take them to a vet or physio to get fully checked over before you start working on increasing their motivation and drive, because you would be amazed how often I get dogs at seminars and their owners say, oh, they're not that excited, or they're avoiding jumps and they're just not into it. And then when I watch them, it's very clear that they have some sort of injury or tightness. Most commonly what I see is tightness in the spine or in the hips, or sacroiliac joint, which is a very common agility injury. And that tightness then gives the dog a bit of pain when they're jumping, not like debilitating, but enough that it's like, oh, that's annoying. And so then the dog avoids the actions that cause it that pain. And dogs are very good at masking, so they will still run a whole course and look capable, but they won't do it at their full speed because they're feeling a bit sore and tight, just like we can. So the first thing I would do before you build any kind of extra drive and motivation is get your dog checked out by someone who knows what they're doing. Also, watch how do they play with other dogs. So if you've got friends' dogs, or if you take your dogs to training and you know dogs there that they get along with, watch how they play together. Do they do like really rough tumbly play, or do they do like bouncy runaway type of play? Because that's going to give you a lot of insight in how to motivate your dog later on. So do they like to be chased, or are they the chaser? Do they like to jump around, or do they more just sniff each other and walk off? So that gives you a lot of insight into what your dog enjoys. And the other thing to observe is how they entertain themselves when they're alone. So ideally, you want to sort of look out the window while your dog is in the yard by itself and see what it does for fun. Does it dig? Does it sniff? Does it run around with a toy that you have laying there? Does it do zoomies? Does it chase birds? So make some notes about what your dog does over a few days and see what they're doing to have fun. Because again, that will give you a lot of insight later on into how you can motivate your dog yourself. So now let's talk a little bit about effective rewarding. This is probably the most important part of building motivation and drive in agility. If your reward is not optimized or as effective as possible, you're going to have a hard time building motivation and drive. So the first thing I want you to think about when you're choosing a reward is, what does your dog love more than anything? And it doesn't mean like what is their favorite toy. It means in their whole life, what do they get the most excited about? Is it going for a walk? Is it that you come home from work? What do they go absolutely crazy about? Because that's what we want to be able to harness later for a reward. When you're choosing your reward, it's not just, do I use food or do I use a toy? It's more specific than that. So if you know your dog loves food, what kind of food do they love? Is it soft and squishy, or is it hard and crunchy, or is it chewy? What size pieces of food get them the most motivated? And obviously this is trial and error. Cut your sausage big or cut it into teeny tiny pieces and see what they're most engaged with. Surprisingly, like, quite a lot of dogs will prefer 4 tiny pieces of sausage over 1 big chunk of sausage, because it's like they're getting more rewards instead of just getting it all at once. So really play with that sort of stuff as well. And how is the food delivered? Is it coming from your hand? Is it coming from a lotus bowl? Is it coming from a food bowl, a treat and train? Try lots of different delivery methods and see what gels with your dog. And obviously, this is going to be different based on the exercise and what you're teaching as well. So if you are trying to build drive towards you, like for the dog to come into you, then you're going to have to deliver from your hand, or you can drop it quickly on the ground in front of your feet, or you can jiggle a container. I had one dog that was really low motivation at a trial, and we got a crinkly packet because it loved crinkly packets, because the owner sometimes shared her chips with it. So we got a crinkly chips packet and we put its treats in that. And then whenever we were trying to get it to drive towards her, we would crinkle the packet and then would come running, and then she would reward it out of that. So knowing those little insights about your dogs is what is the key to unleashing that motivation. Whereas if you want your dog to drive forward down a line of jumps without you, then you're going to have to be able to place something. So either throwing a lotus ball or placing a bowl of food. If they have a favorite dinner bowl, use that. So really thinking in depth about what will get your dog the most excited. Then if they're a toy dog, what kind of toy? Do they want soft? Do they want crinkly? Do they want long or short? Do they want something that bounces or something that rolls? So again, lots of different kinds of toys that you just need to experiment with and see what your dog gravitates towards in everyday life. What do they naturally engage with, and how do they like to play? Do they want you to play rough with them while they're holding the toy, or do they want you to restrain them and throw it and build excitement that way? It's all about experimenting with your dog away from agility. So just in your backyard, have a bunch of toys and just play together and see what they enjoy. And as I said before, let them play with other dogs and see how they play naturally. And sometimes the reward is not food or a toy. It can be something completely different, like herding other dogs, swimming, the broom. So one example I always talk about is with my dog Poe. Her weaving was a little bit slow to start with, and I wanted to build her speed and motivation for weaves. And her favorite thing in the whole world is herding my other dogs. So we've got a big paddock down the back outside of our yard, and she loves when I release the dogs to go for a run in the paddock and she herds them and runs around them. That's her biggest joy in life. So I basically just set some weaves towards the gate to that paddock, and I would open the gate and put my other dogs in a sit and stay. If you don't have that kind of control, you can obviously get a helper to stand at the gate as well. And I would ask her to weave. And when she got to the last weave pole and I could tell she was doing them all right, I would give her a marker cue, like, yes, good dog. And then I would release all the dogs to run to the paddock. And it was just one rep of the weaves, run to the paddock. And we did that probably for 3 months, and her weaves almost tripled in speed. And she started single stepping, whereas before she would hop, because she was just so excited about getting into those weaves because she knew it would lead to going for a run in the paddock. So whatever you tie their favorite thing to, they will build that same level of excitement and value for that thing. So for us, it was weaves. I know Yanita did something similar with her dog with the seesaw or the teeter when the dog was scared of it. And the dog overcame the fear for that same reason. So knowing that one thing your dog loves more than anything is the most powerful key that you have to building drive and agility. If you're not sure, for example, with toys or food, let the dog choose. So put out a line of different treats or put out a line of different toys and hold your dog back and send them to it and see what they engage with first. And do that several times because it might be different every time. Or if you really notice a strong pattern, then it's really obvious what your dog prefers. So make sure you don't just assume, because what we might find fun might not be the same thing that your dog finds fun. And only use a reward your dog already loves. Very often I see people trying to get their dog to engage with the tug at a seminar that I'm teaching. And if the dog doesn't want to engage with the tug, don't use it as a reward, because all it's going to do is put pressure and stress on you both. And your dog is going to tie the training to the stress of something it doesn't really find rewarding and you trying to push it on the dog. So if you want to build tug drive, which by the way is not necessary for agility, I have had many dogs myself that have got to championship level and never tugged on a toy in their life. Whereas I also have dogs that love tug. So it's about your dog, not about what works in agility. I just had to say that, sorry. So if your dog loves something, you can use it as a reward. But if it doesn't love it, don't use it as a reward. Use something else, okay? So it's not about what you should reward with. It's about what your dog wants you to reward with. And everyday life, again, is also really important with rewarding. So are all their needs already met by themselves? Can your dog meet their own needs? Do they play with other dogs in the yard the whole day? Your other dogs, I'm guessing. Do they chase birds in trees or run up and down the fence with the neighbor's dog? Do they have access to so much food that they have no hunger anymore? And do they have constant access to toys? If any of those is a yes, that's going to affect your ability to motivate your dog. Because if dogs can meet their own needs, they don't tie the value of that need in with you. Every dog has the need for food, the need for exercise, the need for play. They're just natural needs that they have. And if that dog can meet those needs by itself, it doesn't need you. So it doesn't have the value for working with you. Whereas if you control those needs, and that might sound a bit weird, but let's say, for example, with food, obviously we're not going to starve the dog. But very often when people tell me that their dog is not food motivated, generally the dog is overfed. And a quick obvious way to see that is to check their weight. If you're not sure yourself, you can ask the vet. But you should be able to feel their ribs at least when you pat them. So if you think your dog is a bit overweight, cut down their food a little bit and put one of their meals in your treat pouch or your container and use it for training, because then you are involved with that need. The dog has the need for food. It knows it can get the food by doing something with you. So therefore it transfers the value of food to you. You are its access to food. And that is how you get more motivation for that training, because instead of a dog bothering you at 5 p.m. saying, hey, it's food time, and scratching you and like walking to its bowl or bringing you its bowl, some dogs even do that, or licking its bowl to say, hey, put food in here. Instead of that, you'll get a dog that's bugging you saying, hey, let's train, because it wants to do something to earn its food. And that's how you get that motivation for training sessions. Same thing with playing with other dogs. If your dog spends all day playing with another dog or running around chasing birds or whatever, and it burns all of its exercise and play need that way, that's not going to transfer to training or playing with you. So you need to make sure you're engaging with your dog and playing with them every day. It doesn't have to be agility, but just getting out some of their energy and some of their need to play with you. So you can obviously play some tug, you can play some fetch, although don't do that every day with a ball thrower because you'll just over arouse your dog and have all other problems. But mix it up, have some fun with your dog, play together. And obviously every now and then that play will also be training. But when you're involved in the play, again, that value goes to you. If your dog is bored and wants to play, it will look to play with you, not with something in the yard or something else, because it has that history of playing with my human is fun and accessible. And that also means that constant access to toys. Don't leave them laying around in the lounge room or the yard all day, because then they lose their value. They're always accessible. So put specific agility fun toys away and only bring them out for training and for agility. And then that toy will become more special, and your dog will tie the value of playing with that toy with the value of training. So if you have an issue with one of these things that you can't control, so for example, wildlife is a very common one, then there's always lots of different ways you can get creative to control your dog's access to that thing. And I'm happy to give you some tips for that if you have specific issues. We can talk about that at the end. But basically, things like chasing birds is because the dog is a little bit bored and frustrated and goes and looks for something to do. So if you can get in before that happens and do some training with the dog, even just for its breakfast or at morning time, then the dog won't have as much of a need to find something to entertain itself, like chasing birds. So really think about your dog's needs and how they are being met every day and whether you're involved or not, because you need to be. How you use the reward also really changes that level of drive and motivation. So you need to reward the dog behind the obstacles rather than from your hand if you want to build motivation and drive for agility, because it gives the dog confidence to pass you to go and grab the reward. And then in everyday agility, they will also have the more confidence in passing you to take obstacles instead of running at your speed, because they're never going to be running at their full speed or be motivated for agility if they only ever look towards you while they're running. So we need to build value for the obstacles. And to do that, all you need to do is place obstacles in between, place rewards in between obstacles. So you can pre-place them or you can throw them in, but either way, they should be getting rewarded forward for building confidence, not from your hand. And one of the biggest mistakes I've been seeing lately in agility is that people, once they have basic skills and the dog knows the obstacles, they always think training is about getting through a sequence. And they think that they should get through it all, no matter how, and muddle through and fix mistakes. And then they get to the end and then they reward the dog. And all the dog learns then is once I get to the end, I get my reward. And the longer it takes to get to the end, the more frustrated they get because all the stuff in between is just annoying and difficult and challenging. And they know they're not going to get rewarded till the end anyway. So then you get a dog that starts really slow or really sniffy, doesn't want to break the start line. And then when it does the run home, it gets a bit excited because it knows finally I'm getting my food. So to break that, probably 80% of the time, you need to be rewarding throughout the sequence. So whatever you're training, if your dog finally nails something, or if your dog's finding something difficult, or it does something super well, just throw in a reward randomly, make it a surprise. So let's say your dog finally hit a great contact and you release them to the tunnel, throw the ball or the food so that it lands as the dog exits the tunnel as a surprise. So the only time you should be rewarding at the end is if you're specifically doing competition practice. So every now and then, probably twice a month, I would do it. You want to be rewarding your dog with placed food outside of the ring, just like you would in a competition. But when you're doing specifically that training, you need to make the sequence easy for the dog. So there should be no new skills in that course. It should be stuff your dog knows how to do and is confident and solid on. And your only focus for that training session is I'm going to see if my dog can run a course when I don't have the food on me and it's at the end and I will reward it at the end. And that's it. Every other training session where you're teaching new skills, where you're working on obstacles, where you're practicing putting skills in a sequence or techniques in a sequence, you should be rewarding throughout every 3-4 obstacles anytime your dog does something well. And that will build a lot of motivation for the dog to try things throughout the course instead of just run home at the end. When you're using placed rewards, make sure you build excitement for that placed reward. So even hold the dog back if your dog doesn't mind that, hold their harness, throw or place the reward and ready, where's your treat? Oh, this is so exciting. Yeah, go. And then you let them go. Because it's much easier to build excitement at the start than throughout the exercise once you've placed the reward already. And when if your dog runs to the reward, and misses a jump, for example, or runs around something to run to the reward, do not correct them. That's a very quick way to stress out your dog and to lose the trust. Because if they think, oh, maybe I'm not allowed to get the reward, they're never going to run there with full speed and drive and motivation. So if they have gone around and snatched the reward, then you need to do better with setting up your exercise so that that's not possible. So either you make sure that it's in a closed thing, like a treat and train, or even a container with a lid that you can open, or you need a helper that can control, for example, the toy. So you can throw your toy there and the helper can stand nearby. And if your dog goes to steal it, they can just pick it up and you can call the dog back. But on the way to the dog running to the toy, do not go, no, leave it, because that's when you're going to shut down their drive for running to the toy. And if you're training by yourself and you're not able to put the reward in something, just make the exercise easier. So it's easier for the dog to run through the exercise to the toy than around the exercise. And don't withhold rewards for your mistakes. So this is, again, very common where someone is trying to get a handling technique right and they're doing something wrong with their body language, so the dog does the wrong thing, but really the dog is just naturally following your body language and what it interprets that as. So if you start withholding rewards for that because it's not what you were trying to achieve, then the dog is going to lose a lot of confidence and trust and willingness to try, because it's like, well, I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. Why did I not get rewarded that time? And I did this time and I was still doing exactly what you told me to do. So I always say in seminars and in training with my students, as soon as something goes wrong, throw in the reward and let your dog have the reward while you think about what can I change to achieve what I actually want to achieve. My dog read that as a left, but I actually wanted it to turn right. So do I need to change the way my chest is pointing or my feet are pointing or that sort of thing? And if you don't know, video it and send it to us and we can tell you. That's a lot better than rehearsing the wrong thing and rewarding that. So do not withhold rewards for your mistakes. Okay, we're always rewarding the dog. It's a bit different if it goes off and runs out the ring and pees on a tree. Obviously, don't reward that, but actual mistakes during training is what I'm talking about. And be generous with your rewards. So sometimes I have people who are giving one tiny kibble to their dog for something. And then at home, when they have dinner, they get a whole bowl of that kibble. So why would they put more effort into doing agility to earn rewards if they can so easily access a bowl of food later on? So be generous, give them 5, 6 pieces of squishy sausage when they did something awesome. Obviously, when they really nail something, you're going to be a lot more excited and give a lot more reward. Same with play. It's not just throw them the toy, move on. It's throw them to the toy, play together, tug, get excited, throw it again, pat the dog, tell them how good they are. It should be a decent, generous reward when you're trying to build drive and motivation so that the dog has a reason to want the reward. Now, let's talk about some training session guidelines. So, your own attitude to training unlocks everything when it comes to motivation and drive. I've had 7 different agility dogs and all different breeds, tiny ones, big ones, and they are all motivated and excited about agility because I am always motivated and excited about agility. I can give a 10-hour seminar and still at the end be excited about it because I love agility and I love watching dogs learn and helping handlers understand things. And that attitude, the dogs pick up on. So whenever I help someone build drive during a seminar, they're always amazed how quickly their dog gets excited. And it's just about getting them excited. If you sort of are like, yeah, let's go, good dog, then your dog is going to be like, can't be bothered. Whereas if you're like, yeah, this is the best thing, then your dog will be like that. And if you naturally find it really hard to be like that, work on it because that's going to be the first thing that will transfer to your dog. And even if it means you just need to train at home for a while because you're not embarrassed about being silly and excited, do that then and train with groups of people who you're not embarrassed around. Do have fun together, do silly things together, do agility games like we did with our training group a while ago that we ran a course with a glass of wine in our hand. And whoever spilt the least amount of wine during their run won the game. That sort of silly thing, it just makes it fun again and reminds you that it's meant to be fun. So I'm going to show you a quick video now of exactly what I just spoke about. And you can see the difference between when the puppy holder and the motivator is low energy and when they are high energy. So here you can see the boring low energy one, boring assistant placing a reward, and the dog gets released and just sort of goes, what are we doing? What's happening here? Why am I running to that? Now we have a really excited person holding it, a really excited person placing the reward, and a really excited person. Look at the difference in body language. And does a little handstand after. So big difference, and the only thing that changed was how excited the people were. So if you're not feeling excited and you're feeling a bit bleh that day or you're a bit frustrated with training, stop training because it will immediately transfer to that exercise. Dogs tie whatever they were feeling and whatever emotions they had during an exercise with that exercise. So the next time they see that exercise, they will feel the same way unless you put a lot of effort into changing it. So one session where you're not feeling good will damage a lot more than just skipping that session and training again later on when you're feeling happy and excited about it. And if you've lost the ability to feel happy and excited about it, then you need to stop doing agility and speak to some people about it and figure out how to get that feeling back, because it's just going to do more damage to your relationship with your dog if you're not in it together and really having fun. And you can't fool your dog. You can't pretend to be happy because they pick up on that. So you need to genuinely be excited to be there and having fun together. And if agility is not where you're feeling that with your dog, try a different sport for a while. Have a break. Come back when you're feeling motivated and excited again. When it comes to the session itself, make sure you finish before the dog is done. If you see the dog starting to look around, wanting to run off and visit people and go and see the judge or pee on a tree or something like that, or visit another dog, then you've gone too long. Your dog is saying it's done. So learn how long your dog can mentally focus and stick to that time limit. And sometimes it might mean that you shouldn't video or you shouldn't train with friends, because sometimes you need a couple of sessions where you say to yourself, I'm really going to watch my dog and see when they're done, instead of having that bit of ego that everybody has of, oh, I really want to just get this right. I just want to show I can do this sequence. I just want to get it on video. That's like one of those damaging things where you just keep doing it one more time to try and get it right, but really you know your dog is done. So try to get out of that habit and really finishing before they get to that point. An easiest way is to use a timer, and you'd be amazed how little time or how much time you actually use when you don't have a timer. So I quite often will set a timer for, say, 8 minutes, and when that timer goes off, I have to stop, no matter what we're up to, no matter if we've just finished on a mistake, it doesn't matter, just stop. And then you will know, okay, at this point, how was my dog's attitude? Were they still engaged? Were they still having fun? If so, next time you can set it a minute longer. If not, set it back. And if you end up going to a different place, like going training from home to training at a facility, your dog's mental focus and stamina is going to be completely different. So don't expect it to be back at that same level, because they have other distractions and other things going on. Set treats is another way. So let's say you have 15 treats and you'll say, okay, when I get to number 15 and they're gone, I'm stopping training. That's another way if you don't want to be using a timer. Don't ask for start lines if your dog is low drive. You can ask for one to train your start line stay, but after that, either send them around a wing, restrain them, do a spin or a nose touch or something before you start your run, because it's much harder to build excitement from a start line stay than to start excited and continue in that level. So that's also one common thing where dogs can get frustrated if they're asked to stay too many times during a training session. So just get rid of that and just slingshot, and you can practice your start line stays in a separate session away from where you're trying to build drive and motivation. And building mental stamina slowly. So that was like what I was saying with the timer. Generally, slowly expand the time and expect to start again right at the bottom when you go to a new environment or train with a different person or something like that. Now let's talk about skills. So dogs love to learn new things. Surprisingly, dogs would rather work for a treat than just be given the treat for free. There was a study on this done at a university. I'll link it in the emails. But Janita really enjoys these dog behavior studies and learning about them. And there was one that showed that there was a group of dogs that were asked to do something and then given a reward, and a group of dogs that were just given the reward. And the dogs that were asked to do something for the reward came into that room much more excited about it than the dogs that were just given the reward. And this is sort of similar to what we have seen ourselves in training and seminars, that if the dog is allowed to think and learn through operant learning, so things like offering a jump, basically the handler sitting still and letting the dog figure it out and offering different behaviors, and the handler rewarding ones that they like and ignoring the ones they don't, the dog learns and uses its brain to try and figure out what you want. That style of learning has been shown to be the most motivating for dogs. It allows the dog to figure out and predict how they can earn the reward. And dogs love predictable things. They love routines and patterns. So if they can work out with like their own pattern to achieve that reward, that will motivate them and build drive. So if you haven't tried operant conditioning, such as things like offering the jump before, I will link offering the jump in one of the follow-up emails and you can have a go, or you can find it in our Foundation for Agility program online. But that is one of the great exercises for building confidence in your dog. And if you've never like allowed the dog to think for themselves that much and you're always helping them, try something new. Like try letting the dog lead on the course and doing things like rear crosses and handling from behind. It will mean if you have a lower drive dog, you will probably have to place a lot of rewards to get them the confidence to actually go ahead of you. But have a go at that and see if it changes your dog's attitude in agility. So teaching your dog skills will build confidence, and then that confidence is what builds drive. So lower drive dogs often lack confidence because the handlers always says, well, I'm fast enough. My dog doesn't need that skill because I can just run and get there and help the dog. But if you actually taught them the skill, then that would increase their confidence, because if the dog can predict what's going to be happening, as I said, dogs love predictions and patterns. If they can predict what's happening, they are more motivated to do it more quickly. So let's say, for example, a flick, which is where the dog turns away from you and does a 360-degree turn. If you always run to the inside of the dog's line and do it as a wrap because it's easier, then they don't really know what they're doing till they get to the jump and you're sending them around and you're waiting for them to jump and you're pulling them. Whereas if you teach them a flick, and as a skill. And then as soon as you start to cue that, they immediately know, oh, this is that thing I learned, or this is the thing I know, and they will do it more quickly because they know what's coming up. So make sure that you still teach your dog lots of skills, even if you can get there and just help them anyway. Commitment and obstacle focus are these two most important skills to teach your dog. These are foundation skills and they build confidence and trust, because lower drive dogs often don't have commitment and obstacle focus. They will pull off the jump on a dime. As soon as you stop, they stop. And as soon as you turn, they turn off the jump. And handling these kinds of dogs with good timing is really hard, because if you give timely information, they might just pull off the jump. So, and that makes it really unpredictable. So when you release the dog off the start line, you don't know what dog you're going to get until you start running together. You might have like a dog that's more fast and excited that day and has better commitment, or you might have a dog that's really distracted and looking around and has no commitment. And that makes it really hard to plan your handling or your course walking. So going back and teaching commitment and obstacle focus, which are the two main parts of our Foundation for Agility program, will help fix this problem and build that trust back. And talking about that, we're going to go into handling that builds drive, because it's a lot about that topic. So when I was talking about helping the dog, quite often helping is not actually helpful for these dogs, because overhandling or delaying your handling to help the dog stay committed will actually damage the trust and confidence. Because what handlers do is they end up running up to the jump and they wait till the dog is in midair, and then they go, okay, now turn, because they're worried that the dog will pull off if they don't wait there. But meanwhile, the dog has just been told, we're going straight, just take the jump. Oh no, actually now we're turning. And so then the dog really starts doubting and refuses jumps even more, because it feels like, oh, maybe I need to do something else, or maybe this is wrong and she's suddenly going to change her mind. So that overhandling to help the dog actually ends up being a negative thing for the relationship. So it's much better to teach your dog the skill to commit and stay committed, so that you can give information and move on, instead of like waiting at every jump and trying to help the dog. Clear, timely information allows the dog to predict what's happening next. And when they can predict what's happening next, that's when you get confidence. So a really easy way to think about this is, if you're in a car and somebody is helping you navigate in a place that you've never been and you don't know where you're going, if you come up to an intersection and you're not getting any directions from the person, would you slow down while you're waiting for directions? Would you go, oh, are we turning right? Are we going straight? I don't know. I'll slow down and wait and see what they say. I'm guessing your answer is yes. Your dog is exactly the same. If they're approaching a jump and they're not 100% sure where they're going next because there's not something straight in front of them, they're going to slow down and wait for directions. And meanwhile, that because they slow down, you're slowing down, and then you both stop and it all falls apart. So I want you to teach your dogs the skill of having obstacle focus and commitment, so that you're able to give directions early, so that they don't have to slow down and wait for directions. And if the directions are late, do you lose trust in the navigator? So if you are in the middle of the intersection and they go, turn left, would you go, ah, crap, and try and turn left and go like, oh, I don't trust them anymore, I need a GPS or something? That's exactly the same as if your dog is in midair and you suddenly say turn and change direction, exactly the same situation. And once you do know where you're going, do you speed up? If they say, okay, it's left 2 streets up ahead, will you speed up your car because you know, okay, I'm going to go left 2 streets up ahead, so you know where you're going and you're confident in that? If yes, your dog is exactly the same. If you can tell your dog in 3 strides we're turning, then they will take those 3 strides much more quickly, because they know what's coming up. So think about the fact that if your dog has better commitment and you can just get that down, then everything is going to be easier for the dog, because they can predict what's happening and what's going to come up next. Now we're going to talk a little bit about connection. So the handler is responsible for connection. Dogs crave connection. And an easy way to see this is, if you're playing with your dog and you turn your back on them, what does the dog do? I guarantee, unless they're distracted by something, if they're actually engaged with you, they will run around the front of you and try to get your eye contact back, because they want that connection. And for the dog to be able to focus on their job of taking obstacles and committing to obstacles, it's your job to stay connected with them. Because if you don't, if you look at the obstacles, your dog is just going to run at you and try and get that connection back, and they can't focus on taking obstacles. So connection is really, really important, and especially for these lower drive dogs, because again, if the handler starts looking forward at an obstacle, the dog can't predict what's going to happen next. That connection is broken. So all they do is focus on the handler. Is she going to turn her head? Are we doing a blind cross? What are we doing here? And meanwhile, they will slow down and wait for that information to come and wait for the connection to be re-established. So if you have to break connection, for example, during a blind or the dog's in a tunnel, make sure you get it back as soon as possible. And that's your job to get that back. So you watch the dog, don't wait for the dog to come running up at you. And every dog reacts differently to broken connection. So some dogs will jump up at you, some will sniff, some will take an off course obstacle, some will go and visit the judge. Lots of different ways that dogs react to broken connection. But next time your dog does something that you don't like sniffing or running off to the judge or something, watch the video of the run. And if you don't video yourself, do get somebody else to video you at competitions, because it's such an eye opener. And watch it back in slow motion and watch your own head and see, just before that thing happened, was I looking at the dog? Did I have them in my peripheral? I can almost guarantee you the answer will be no. Because when the dog has a chance to get disconnected, that's when all these negative behaviors happen, because they get distracted and because they lose some confidence. So if you can stay connected as much as possible, you're going to reduce those behaviors of distractedness and losing motivation. Now, your rhythm and your timing is also really important when it comes to handling. So, movement is the number one of those 7 handling elements that Janita identified, and it's the most important one to your dog. Movement gives your dog more information than anything else. So, if you get too far ahead of your dog, then you can't move anymore and you can't give that information. So, it seems obvious, but stop leading out. If you are able to get to a critical point on time, with wherever you lead out to, then do not lead out any further than that. Because that's another common mistake I see, where handlers lead out as far as they possibly can, release the dog, and then stand there. And meanwhile, the dog's not getting any information because the handler is not moving. So only lead out as far as you absolutely have to get to where you need to go. If you are running too fast and you're going to get too far ahead of your dog and be stuck somewhere because of the next obstacles, slow down your rhythm while the dog is in the tunnel, because they can't see you. So you can jog on the spot a little bit and wait for the dog and then come out together and move together. Don't take shortcuts on the course if you don't need to. So sometimes you could if your dog has decent distance, but then if it means you're standing still at the next thing, then it's better to run with the dog so that you can be moving together to keep that motivation and drive up. Obviously, this is only for dogs that are lower motivation and lower speed. If you have a really fast dog, then you will need shortcuts and things like that, but then you wouldn't be in this webinar. So choose the handling options that keep you moving. So we have 30 different handling techniques at OneMind Dogs, or more than 30 actually, and it's just because we want a solution for everybody. So if you have a lower drive dog, you need to choose those solutions that keep you as the handler moving. So for example, that's things like doing a Japanese instead of a whiskey cross. If you're not already following OneMind Dogs handling that much and you've never heard of these terms and they sound weird, don't worry about it. I will send you more information in the follow-up emails about these things, but basically there's always an option where you need to run more. You need to take that option if you're able to get there, because keeping on moving like that is what will help your dog stay more motivated to keep running at its full speed as well. And take the time to really enjoy these teaching moments. I know that sometimes with these kind of dogs that are not as into it as they could be, it can feel really frustrating, but these dogs also teach you a lot. You learn about seeing that moment of commitment and how to improve that commitment. You learn about clean and timely handling and getting it right the first time, because you know if you have to repeat it, then the dog's going to start shutting down because they lose confidence. These low motivated dogs absolutely hate getting things wrong. And especially because they themselves find it harder to have confidence if they feel like they're constantly getting it wrong. So you need to be like, you need them to believe that they're right. Doesn't mean that you have to be right, but it means that if you stuff up, you need to still tell them that they were right. So getting excited still and rewarding and fixing your handling so that it doesn't happen again. Being all in when you're in the ring together. If you are not excited, as I spoke about before, if your attitude is not there and excited and being there together and having a great time, it's not going to go well for you. So these dogs will teach you to be all in your training sessions and be focused and not worry about what's for dinner tonight, and really just be there with your dog. They will help you learn more about your dog and what that specific dog loves, which will bring you closer overall. And that's really what it's about. Agility is obviously not about, which is also my next point, you'll learn what's important in agility. It's not about winning. It's about having fun with your dog and doing something you both love together. And that's only going to happen when you learn what your dog loves and what they need in the ring. So I want to leave you with the thought of not every dog needs to be a champion to love agility. It's more about the joy and the connection and the fun that you share together during your journey. And if that's not how it feels for you, then I would be stopping agility and reevaluating your relationship with your dog. Do something else fun together for a while and reconnect and remember what's really important about it and the journey you guys share together, because that's what really matters. Don't forget that if you're at our website, so app.oneminddogs.com, there's a little chat bubble in the corner. That's me and Lynn or Stephanie or Caitlin. We will be more than happy to give you the same information there. So ask any questions there. Even if you're not an Agility Premium member, you can ask questions there. You just can't send in videos. When you're premium, you get to send in videos of everything as well. But as a free user, you can still ask questions and you can get me to clarify something from the webinar, anything like that. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the webinar.